It's my go.
God! Oh, it's bigger.
Yes.
On the inside.
Look, we need to concentrate.
There it is.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this, but I need you to calm down.
On the outside.
Oh, you certainly grasped the essentials.
My entire understanding of physical space has been transformed. Three-dimensional Euclidean geometry has been torn up, thrown in the air, and snubbed to death. My grasp of the universal constants of physical reality has been changed. Forever. Sorry. I've always wanted to see that done properly.
Aren't you just the teeniest bit sorry we didn't get a Christmas tree? I mean, even though they're dirty and messy and corny and cliched.
Well, where are you going to find a tree at this hour on Christmas Eve?
Once again, it was Christmas Eve. Night was falling, and the lamplighters were plying their trade.
Hey, light the lamp, not the rat, light the lamp, not the rat!
My apologies.
What are you doing? Put me out, 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 put me out! What? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
You wouldn't want to hurt a fellow civil servant, would you? What's all this violence? It's Christmas, and I was just delivering some Christmas. Hey! Back up! This is a homemade explosive device, and I'll blow it up. You know why? Because I work for the post office, so you know I'm not stable. Now put the guns down. Now! Put them down. Brother man, put your gun down. Everybody! You too, Barnaby Jones. All right, just stay there. And I'll know if you move, because I have the ear of a snake. Chop in.
Oh, you shouldn't mess with that.
Relax, Sparky. I was on the bomb squad for 10 years.
Ever feel that bomb? Just a sick world we're living in. Sick people.
How many years in the bomb squad?
Reserve your opinions, gentlemen. Hear me out. Across the river, 10 miles downstream, is the village of Trenton. It is held by 1,200 Hessians with Rahl in command. They have food, warm clothing, blankets, tents, cannons, muskets, ammunition, in short, everything we need. In 4 days, it will be Christmas. There will be a great deal of feasting and a great deal of drinking by the Hessians that day and night. I propose that on the eve of December 25th, we cross the river, march on Trenton, and attack the Hessians before dawn. And if God is with us, we'll take the whole lot of them.
Good evening, and welcome to this special edition, Christmas edition of Uncut History. And we're going to get really awkward really quickly. So if you're in a certain Gilded, our overlord of that Gilded has dropped a video talking about, well, it's by Matt Pat of Game Theory, talking about YouTube Shorts and probably most likely how they corrupt the youth. So we're gonna get to the Christmas stuff in a few moments. I was watching this while setting up the stream, which is why I totally forgot to string the lights. It's Christmas, and I forgot to string the lights out. We're gonna go right in. We'll talk a bit about YouTube and its algorithm and what we can look forward to or dread in the coming year. Share screen. And where are you at? I got a lot of stuff to get through tonight, which is why we're starting an hour early. This is probably going to be at least a 2-hour stream. So, thank you for all who's tuning in, and we're just going to jump right over. We're talking a little bit about Matt Pat, talking about what everyone hates about YouTube Shorts, and you should too.
Surface. Let me just take you through what I mean. At its core, YouTube has always been a search engine. Historically, the second largest search engine in the world behind Google itself. Because of this, making videos on things that people search for, like movies, games, food, has always worked fairly well. It's also worked well because you can search for specific creators that you're interested in. You go to their channel page and find a whole bunch of videos that you get from the same channel. But notice how I said that you, the viewer, have to do something to watch the videos. You have to open YouTube, obviously, but you also have to, at minimum, choose a...
So what he talked about in the first okay, I was kidding. We're not actually gonna watch the whole video. I'm not gonna do that. But I did want to talk about this for a few moments, and I'm just gonna kind of mute it for a bit as I chat. What I want to talk about, at least my personal take on the wonders of the YouTube Shorts, is basically what everybody's been saying. YouTube Shorts is YouTube's way of trying to compete with the audience TikTok has garnered. How has TikTok got an audience like that? Well, TikTok has targeted the adolescence of the current world we live in, and that adolescence goes through, let's be honest, they go through mood swings. Every 1 minute they're on one thing, next moment they're on the other. And what TikTok, those shorts tap into essentially is that whole rapid change of interest. It tries to capitalize on keeping somebody's attention for a very small length of time, usually under a minute. And people really don't, apparently most what YouTube's audience don't like sitting for an hour and a half to learn about information. They much rather get at all in 1 minute. And there's nothing wrong with it. There is an art if you can get concise information out in less than a minute. And art, maybe I need to try to do a little bit more. So YouTube made shorts, and of course, I think what everybody's getting upset with is YouTube is ramming the shorts. Like, you must use shorts to get an audience, or else. This is the only way you can attract an audience, which, I understand that you want to target the younger audience because that's your growing audience. The audience is going to stick with you. There is a large age group beyond your 18 to 21-year-old demographic. That goes for all media outlets. People aren't going to be teenagers with short attention spans forever. They're going to mature eventually. They're going to become adults. And considering our society is growing increasingly older, everybody's life expectancy is becoming increasingly longer, and also considering an alarming rate of people not having as much children in the next and future generations because they can't afford to have families. They're fearful of trying to raise families on monopoly money like we got going here in the United States of America. Japan actually has it far worse. If you look at the population, you can see the population in the youth department dropping off with each passing generation. There's more to life, YouTube, than that precious 14 to 20-year-old demographic that they're trying to hit it. So what you end up having is this situation where YouTube is telling us you got to do shorts because all the youth are going over to TikTok and we want to get them back. And this also feeds into this mentality of everything got to be shorter, everything got to be quicker because attention spans are growing tinier and tinier. And that's ultimately unhealthy. So when we end up getting these future generations getting into the adult demographic, their ability to, process complex ideas is going to be it's going to be a little difficult. Sure, you might say, well, maybe because they're learning to digest things quickly to be able to solve problems quickly. I don't think that's going to be the result. So that's my take on the YouTube short situation. If you want to go see the full video, Matt Pat, he's done a pretty good video thus far. So I am going to drop the link in the description below. I get why YouTube shorts are a thing. I get why short media content is a thing. But I just, it's feeding a beast. It's feeding a beast, and it's not going to be beneficial for future generations. And by hyper focusing on this small demographic, you're ignoring a much larger demographic. That's just my opinion. Many people have argued that, well, that is where the internet audience is, younger generations. Me personally, most of my demographic that watches this channel, I know of an older demographic. That's the truth. And that's probably because, well, this is a history channel. And of course, I'm going to get a much smaller audience. But yeah, not a fan of the YouTube shorts. And the more that YouTube pushes it, and other platforms, it's not just YouTube, push the shorts, they are creating a very unhealthy tick in the youth and future generations we're going to see develop in the world. This unhealthy tick of everything got to be shorter and shorter and shorter, faster and faster, or else we won't be able to have the attention span. And there are just some problems, some complex structures that you can't get through in less than a minute. So that's my rant. That's my rant on YouTube Shorts. Let's talk about the holiday. I had to get my thoughts. The link came up, and I'm like, oh, I have to get my thoughts. So let's go back into the chat. I've been neglecting you guys. I am so sorry. I had to get that rant off. We got Maji join in. Very, very perplexed by the thumbnail. Yeah, in hindsight, I probably should have used the advert with the Christmas tree on the orange background as the thumbnail. I just grabbed the free topics I knew I was talking about. Skunks Workshop is joining us. How are you doing, Skunks? How are you doing? Wrangler, hold on. And also, hold on. And Maji asks, what is the movie with, I'm going to read it like it's misspelled, Gorge W scene from? So that is actually from a little movie called The Crossing, which was released back in 2000 by A&E Entertainment. We're going to talk more about that later on, so just hang in there a little bit. New people joining. Sound Maji Wave, Chan Wave. We're going with Chan Wave. That's what we're going with. Oh, cool. I appreciate that. There is a youth demographic. Yes. They're coming in here. I was going to say something else tonight. I'm like, yes, there are younger people getting into history. I much appreciate it. I was going to try to turn it into a joke. Why was I going to make that into a joke? That's weird. No, let's not fight. Okay, you cats. Let's not fight over here. Fred can sit right here next to the computer. And now he's turned his head upside down because he thinks he's a kitten. He thinks he's very cute. I mean, he is cute, but also he's curiosity to kill the cat. You're the very definition. You're the reason I have to own a giant plastic bin. You haven't seen this. So I have to own a plastic bin now. So whenever I leave this room to just go grab anything, it can be for 5 seconds, they won't get on my computer. It's because of you, and he's gone, and he's gone. That is horrifying. Fred just disappeared. He does that too. Cats. What are we gonna do? Aeon Frequency Studios has joined us in Rumble, and by the way, guys, we do stream on Rumble, and for the first time ever, we are triple streaming. We're live on YouTube, we're live on Rumble, and we're live on the Facebook. So hello to any potential viewers over on the Facebook. I have the comment section pulled up. I did. Or maybe I didn't. I don't know. So if you're over on Facebook, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And welcome to Uncut History, which we stream most Thursdays, usually around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but we're starting an hour early for the holiday. This is viewer's choice. So last week I said if there's a topic you would want me to cover before the year is out, let's do it tonight. And without any further ado, let's do just that. So I'm going to remove that. Oh my God. It's massive, guys. No, it's not the one I want to. So We're going to talk about this. Well, do you want me to read this now? So this was a couple days ago. This comes in from the Western Journal, newspaper based near Philadelphia. And in short, a school in the suburbs of Philadelphia released a memo to all of their school bus drivers in age, which was on the subject on decor and attire. As per superintendent name, who has been receiving complaints from parents concerning district employees displaying Christmas-themed decorations and are wearing clothing of the same nature. If you have decorated your bus with anything specific to the Christmas holiday or any other decorations related to a specific holiday, please remove them immediately. In addition, employees are not instructed to wear clothing related to Christmas or any other religious holiday. And just in case you didn't understand that message, this is not specific to our department. It applies to all district employees. So let that be clear that this school district in the suburbs of Philadelphia are being Scrooges, and no Christmas decorations because it's a religious holiday. And as we go down further here, going down. And yes, in case you're wondering, the Wallingford-Swarthworth School District does have an 8-page guide to ensuring equity and non-discrimination for gender-expansive and transgender students adopted in 2018, but a terse free paragraph tell-off to employees who might want to experience some of the non-discrimination expressing their faith traditions. So apparently there is a law in something in the bylaws in a school district that they are not allowed to display anything for a religious holiday, including Christmas. Yeah, I know it kind of speaks for itself. So that's an article from the Western Journal. I had bookmarked earlier this week. It's Christmas, guys. When I grew up, I know Christ is in the name. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't get all in a workup. I didn't, just because I wasn't going to church or anything, and I didn't get all worked up because, oh, Christmas is a religious holiday. Oh, that's not how I was taught. It's Christmas. I have fun with all the candy canes and the snowflakes and even the nativity scenes. Those are always cool to see. Every town around here got a nativity scene, cool setup. I don't get stressed out about it. Same thing as if somebody has a display relating to Hanukkah. Cool. I would like to see their creativity behind it. Please celebrate your holiday. Stop going in and telling, well, since I don't celebrate a holiday, you can't celebrate either. So nobody can celebrate it. So now we're all happy because we can't have fun. That's not how it works. We can't have fun if we're not having fun. There's my utter rant. Man, it's supposed to be the holidays readout. You're getting very angry. Well, yeah, I'm getting a little angry. Let's just say we're getting the end of the year. Next year, got to be quite honest, not looking forward to things that are going to happen in 2024. So, yeah, apologies if I'm a little curt. I think they need a checkup from the neck up. Hey, thank you for tuning in, Debbie Brunell. Thank you for tuning in. Why, religious or not, it's part of America's culture. It truly is. I mean, and that's something I've always thought about when we get to Christmas, because like the United States has kind of developed its own variant of Christmas that is different from other parts of the world, and other parts of the world have different. Each country is like, they all develop their own thing. So you have the religious Christmas to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. But then you also have the commercialized, the mainstream, as I hate to use the term mainstream, the mainstream Christmas. I think most people have gone for years celebrating Christmas in the mainstream sense, not in the religious sense. It's like, we all get along. Let's just all live and get along. And now we have Lily, the other cat, has joined in to cause chaos. Okay, I've been delaying long enough. I know your guys are probably thinking he was supposed to say our viewer requests, and now we're not there. So, top of the hour, bottom of the hour. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the bells. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, the famous Christmas carol that was written by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and there was Longfellow in his senior years. But let us wind the clock back to his youth. Right there he is. Okay, technically this is 1850, so he's in his 40s by then. This is Nope, I thought I just about X'd out. I was getting really ordered. This is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, born in present-day Maine, but then it was part of Massachusetts. Was born, I believe, in 1806, 1807. He ended up going to Bowdoin College, even though his parents wanted him to pursue a law degree. He was interested in essentially what we would call today a degree in literature. And because of his intense interest in studying literature arts, Bowdoin College, at the end of him getting his degree, actually offered him one of the first professorships for modern literature in the United States of America. I think it was like one of the first four individuals offered this type of professorship. The caveat was he was going to have to travel abroad for a number of years to study other countries' use of language. So he went abroad for about 3 years, studied, came back, got his professorship. He wrote a variety of different textbooks on poetry. Now we're talking early 19th century poetry books. Although this was not quite what he had in mind. It was one of them, it sound great on paper, this job, but having to work within the criteria of what the college was expecting kind of was frustrate him, was kind of chafed. His creative side was being chafed by Bowdoin. So he ended up transferring over and continuing being a professor at Harvard, where he had a little more freedom, and he had a little more free time by the 1830s to start really getting into pursuing his passion, which was publishing poetry. Now, when I say poetry, he did publish small stanzas that would appear in magazines and newspapers and professional publications. But poetry also can mean full epic poems that are basically the size of a modern day novel. So he did all sorts of different poems. Many consider him one of the, if not the first true American poet. I can be here all day naming all the stuff that he published, but the one in particular I want to mention, you guys are probably all familiar with. In 1847, he ended up publishing. Do you want to say it, Lily? I don't think you can speak English. I think all you can do is speak cat. This is going to be one of these streams of the ages. Longfellow in 1847 published his most famous poem, at least before the one we're going to talk about, which was I'm so used to talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion. Oh God, I can't spell. I can't speak the other term. Evangelion, A Tale of Arcadia. I am saying it right. Evangelion and A Tale of Arcadia. Watch a little too much anime. Can't speak the English language anymore. Darn. Is that you 120 years ago? No, I can't. I'm not a poet. That's actually Trippy Soul 120 years ago. So in 1847, oh, the cat keeps rubbing against me and just keeps distracting me. I know you're there. Longfellow publishes his massive epic, A Tale of Acadia, which is about two lovers that are separated during the expulsion of Acadians during the French and Indian War. Hey, look, I found a way to tie it back into the historical subject that my career is devoted to studying. So that was probably his most famous work, this massive epic, but he's published scores of poems. He actually also ended up having two different wives. His first wife was a Mary Potter Longfellow. He married her in the 1830s. Sadly, that relationship did not last long. During one of his tours of Europe, he brought the whole family with him. She contracted an ailment, ended up dying of her illness during the journey. And his second wife, it took him about 7 years to court into marriage, and her name was Frances. And Frances was actually, I believe, she was I couldn't figure out what her relationship was, but she was had a family relation to a Bostonian merchant who was living in Switzerland during one of Henry's tours of Europe, and he actually helped Henry out after the death of his first wife. So he started courting this lady from the Bostonian merchant, and she turned him down. Frances turned him down repeatedly, but ultimately Frances eventually agreed to marry Henry, and they end up having six different children. Henry, by the 1850s, is back is living in Cambridge, Massachusetts at this point. Believe he's left his professorship at Harvard at this point, and is purely publishing. He's living the American dream now. He's worked many years, being the professor at 2 different colleges. Now he's able to go off, publish all the poems to his heart content. He is the way to get it's weird for us to talk about poetry, especially in the 21st century, but these poets of the 19th century, these orators that travel around and lecture, they were these are the big directors, movie producers we would know today. Essentially, that's how the level of claim of fame they have, and all was pretty much right with the world with Henry going for the 1850s, and then the 1860s come. Now, of course, we know what happens in the 1860s in the United States of America, the American Civil War. And Henry was not only did he side with the Union, he was a staunch abolitionist. However, he was not so fond of the violence that was coming with this war against slavery, or at least how it was developing into a war against slavery. And though he was supportive of the Union cause, he did not want himself or any of his children involved in the war in any capacity. And then in 1861, there was an accident at the Longfellow's home. Frances was she was assisting her husband in melting wax to seal letters that were supposed to go out to key figures. Well, she got a little too close to the fire. The fire caught her dress, and unfortunately, she died of those burns. And Henry, trying to save her, also was severely burned in the process. And that completely wrecked Henry, as you can understand, losing his wife, who he had spent many years courting, had 18 wonderful years married to. She's gone in this freak accident. Now you have the war going on. He writes in his journal for Christmas of 1862, "A Merry Christmas, say the children, but that is no more for me." And entering 1863, his son, Charlie, ran away from home to enlist in the Union Army. He ended up serving in an artillery regiment. You can imagine how Henry felt about that. Charlie tried to keep his father's spirits up, trying to say, "Don't worry, I'm going to be taken care of. I promise I'll be safe." Writes regular correspondence throughout the spring and summer of 1863. And these letters kind of show what would happen to any young person going into war, all hyped up by the propaganda machine. Yeah, this is a noble cause. This is great. We're fighting, for a good thing. I'm so proud of Dad. And then starts describing these battlefields, these campaigns he's involved with, the mundane life of camp, the appalling conditions of the living quarters, the stench of the battlefields. And then he actually comes down with a terrible fever shortly after the Peninsula campaign. Or no, sorry, we're 1863, after the Gettysburg campaign. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, this is one of these streams of all time. And his father is completely horrified, actually is able to go down, visit Charlie, gets him back to the family cottage, nurses him back to health. Charlie insists he wants to go back in the service, goes back to the artillery regiment, and then during the Mine Run campaign, which occurred in the late fall of 1863, and if you're not familiar with it, I don't blame you. It's not really well talked about. It occurred after the Gettysburg campaign. It was essentially General Meade's attempt to try to go on the initiative after his victory at Gettysburg, but he just wasn't really able to get into position. There was a lot of skirmishing along the Rapidan and Rappahannock rivers in northern Virginia. During his campaign, Charlie was wounded. Actually, he took a bullet to the shoulder, and it actually did quite a number to his spine. And as I pause, I gotta mention, sorry it's late. Didn't me Christmas shopping for the wee ones. Oh, you're doing a little late there. Yeah, you're pushing it late there on the shopping. And oh, hey, Bambo, thank you for joining in. Welcome to the stream. I'm glad. I think it's the first time you've joined in. If not, welcome back. And welcome into the party. Welcome to our club. Welcome, Bambo. Welcome. I ramble there. So, yeah, Longfellow, not only did he have to nurse his son back to health the first time, now his son's back as an injury reserve. and he is going to take several months. And jumping ahead of the story, Charlie would not return to service on the front lines, at least. He would be discharged in February of 1864 as a result of his injuries. So here we are, Christmas of 1863. Henry, during the Civil War, his wife has died due to a freak fire accident. His son got sick and now is gravely wounded, life-altering injuries. And really, at this point, Henry really hasn't published a lot of poems. Most of what he's publishing, again, he's primarily doing translation work, so he's translating other people's work from Europe for the American audience. And you can imagine somebody losing all this, concerning what's happening in the rest of the country, what's happening to other families probably just down the street of him in Cambridge. Families are losing loved ones left and right as a consequence of this war. Seems that there's no end in sight. It's something to drive a person to lose their faith. But as he claims, when it turned midnight and the bells tolled like they always do to signal Christmas Day, it kept him knowing that things were going to be okay, that life is going to move on, things are going to heal, this country is eventually going to find its way out of this civil war. His son is going to eventually recover, and that Henry will somehow find the courage to move on from his losses. And he's going to write a very comparatively small poem for him, talking about hearing the carols on Christmas Day and how they essentially restored his hope in God, in humanity, in his country. Now, it was written in 1863. It was not published until February of 1865. It ended in a juvenile magazine. And what a juvenile magazine was, no, it's not look, it's Playboy. What wasn't that? These were essentially like dime books. These are small paperback magazines. You would see them distributed a lot of times in the encampments of these soldiers. A lot of little quips and stories from home, fly in the wall type tales. That is when it hit. I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day is first published as a poem. It became quite popular. It was republished in a number of different magazines and newspapers, even after the American Civil War. And probably like a penny book. Like penny books. I got to say it like Tim. Tim is always excited. He's always on the mead. It got recirculated over and over. A lot of people enjoyed this. It wasn't until 1872 that this poem was actually put to music and turned into a Christmas carol. And it was usually what happens back in the 19th century when they put poems to turn them into songs. It's usually an existing piece of music that they put it back to. Like, for instance, the Star Spangled Banner, it was put to music of a bar song of the time period. Battle Hymn of the Republic was put to the tune an existing song. This happened a lot. So these are usually pre-existing compositions and they put these words to them, but usually the remix is what ends up becoming popular. And that's the case with I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. There have been several musical compositions of it since. Probably the one the audience is most familiar with actually brings us to the 1950s is the Bing Crosby version. And I got to go on a tangent. Got to go on a tangent about Bing Crosby. I mean, how can't I? Partial owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates at one point, and fun little tidbit about Bing Crosby. He didn't like watching Pirate games because he felt that it jinxed whenever he watched, they would lose. So during the 1960 World Series, he paid to have training film, a whole training footage of the final game produced so he could watch it at his house later on. And of course, the Pirates win the 1960 World Series against the New York Yankees. And as such, that is the only surviving film of that World Series game, completely intact. Thank you, Bing Crosby, from us Pittsburgh fans. And what I was going to say Pirates fan, but it's a tough time being a Pittsburgh sports fan in 2023. Okay, back to I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. Sorry about that. Bing Crosby, of course, produces his famous variant in 1956, and that version was actually written by a Johnny Marks. Johnny Marks is the godfather of Christmas pop songs. You name it. He wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Holly Jolly Christmas. He has his hands in almost every major, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, almost every major Christmas pop song that comes out in the 1950s. Now, of course, he didn't write I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. That was Henry. I think I changed his name. It's Henry Longfellow. So if I was saying Harry, I apologize. It's Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. What he did to Longfellow's original poem, he cut out the middle stanza. Why did he cut out the middle stanza for Bing Crosby? Well, that's the one that is directly related to the American Civil War. A lot of the lines that are directly referring to the battle between North and South. So took that out, made it a little more ambiguous what this poem's about, and the song has been popular ever since. It's one of the most popular carols around Christmas time. And Sight and Sound Theater, the famed biblical theater that they own two theaters, one not kind of far from here, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's a few hours that direction. And they have another one, I think, near Sugar Creek, Ohio. No, it's not Sugar Creek, Ohio. I think it's probably somewhere in Missouri. They have two Sight and Sound theaters. They made their first theatrical film last year and is about Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's story about how he created his carol. I've not seen the movie yet. I know individuals that were extras in the movie since it is an American Civil War film. I am considering about watching it this weekend. So maybe I'll give you my thoughts. Hopefully I get on that. I can give you my thoughts on how I feel the Sight and Sound Theater did adapting the real life story of the creation behind this carol. So there we are. And this one was a Manji Chan suggestion. I forgot to mention that. This was suggested by Manji Chan. Before we depart, Mr. Longfellow, I want to let you know that after the release of the poem, he got into more dramatic biblical storytelling with his poems. His volumes after the American Civil War were not as financially successful as they were before. That being said, he does go out on a high note as when he passes away, his name is as popular as it ever was. Although his later releases weren't as popular with the general audiences, his prior releases were open to new audiences, and he continued traveling around reading from his past poetry. Here's a photograph of his second wife, the one that tragically died with two of their children. And then this is a photograph. Sorry, again, the photographs are so small. Curse the National Park Service and not publishing their JPEGs large enough. This is of Charlie Longfellow. This is after he was wounded. He's posing in his uniform. He was actually, due to being related to Mr. Longfellow, Charlie was able to get a lieutenant commission in the Union Army during the war. So yeah, that's the story of I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. What do you guys think? Gots to praise the wee lass Manji Chan, princess of the Iron Age, buddy. What meat are you having tonight, Tim? It was a cool topic. I really enjoyed it. I mean, Civil War, I will go down that rabbit hole. And I think there's a lot we can learn from Longfellow when we're talking about the writing process, the process of becoming creator. As I was researching, hearing about this, here's this guy who did all of these different jobs that he didn't necessarily want to do. He was always frustrated by how he was boxed in by having to do the professor work, but that's what allowed him to be able to sustain himself to write his poems, which gradually over time became increasingly more popular. He breaks out with The Tale of Acadia in 1847. He's able to make his living purely off of poetry in the 1850s. Then tragedy befalls him. He's almost completely loses interest in what used to be his passion. And he basically is kind of, at one point, basically given up on the world because of what's happening, not just in his personal life, but what's happening around the country, but is able then to find the courage to continue on. So lot I think we can all learn from Henry Longfellow on that one. Lot that we might learn from him. I tried to sneak one by on us. I didn't try to sneak one by. I said it was an hour early. I said it's Thursday. It's Thursday, Buncher. But yes, I'm sorry an hour early because we got a lot of content to go through. This is the Christmas stream. I'm going till I crash. I got me some coffee. I don't know if it's a good thing that I'm drinking coffee nearly at 8 at night. But It is what it is. So, moving on, we are going over to the Hudson River. We're going down to the Hudson River. Now, this one wasn't actually sent in directly, but by a certain somebody who likes a lot of mead in the chat has been requesting me to talk about this for several months now, and I've been wanting to talk about for several months. And what better time than tonight talking about the Hudson River chain? We could I can hear Tim squee already. We all can. We all can. We're going to the Hudson River and we're going to talk about the chain on the Hudson River. And before we leave Mr. Longfellow forever, I'm going to drop a link in the description below. It's not so much about Longfellow. It's actually about Johnny Marks. You want to learn about the godfather of Christmas pot music. Here you go. Fun little tidbit. He's not even a Christian. He follows Judaism, but produces all the popular Christmas songs. Who would have thought it? So there you are down in the description below. There's a fun little video there that'll go into all the nuts and details about Johnny Marks, how he adapted songs like I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. What type of drink are you grabbing? Bring enough for all of us, all 10 of us. And I don't mean that in a negative way. We were having I noticed we've had a pretty large audience tonight, and thank you for all joining in for this holiday experience. The Hudson River, where I earned the name Gilligan. Okay, I could just have a stream all night reading Tim's chats. Let's just be completely honest here, but we're not going to do that. Only when the time appropriates. All right, back to the stream. Back to what we're here for. To learn, to be good, knowledgeable. We're here to be. I'm the historian, and you are the history buffs. I can't. I'm not an intellect. And here we are, the Great West Point chain. Although, as you're going to learn, there are multiple chains made during the American Revolution to cross the Hudson River. And we're going to go to this lovely map here of the Hudson River, particularly of Anthony's Nose, which is a sharp bend in the river. And when the American Revolution broke out, it started in New England, but all of the colonies agreed to break away and declare independence from King George III. Although some were actually a good bit, were very shaky on this departure from the crown. And it was the opinion of the British Empire that if they were able to separate New England from the rest of the colonies, they would snuff out the revolutionary fever that was happening in the Atlantic and Southern colonies. How were they going to divide New England from the rest of the colonies? Going right up the Hudson River, of course. And in 1776, the Patriots quickly realized, yeah, they're going to send a convoy up this river. So what we probably should do is block it. But how are we going to block it? Well, put a chain. This might sound really, really crazy and a little bit foolish, but actually this has been done many times before and many times since in military history. Simple chains or obstructions thrown into waterways. Now, there are many different ideas on how they were going to do this. Were they going to put what they call chevaux de frise, which is essentially sharp sticks that could puncture the hulls of boats coming up the river? Were they going to throw rocks in there? Were they going to put barges in the river with cannons, basically gunships in there? What were they going to do? Well, simply put, a literal chain. There were an assortment of different large chain lengths for odd assortment of things, from like anchor chains and stuff like that laying around at a lot of the smelting yards in upstate New York. And this idea was, let's use all this leftover chain lengths and let's create a chain. Well, that sounds simple on paper, but you can't just throw all this heavy iron ore into this fast-flowing river, because when they did that in 1776, it snapped the chain. The water pressure snapped the chain. So they pulled the chain out. They tried fixing it. It wasn't working. And they basically said, okay, the British haven't tried coming up the Hudson yet. It's about to freeze over for the winter. Let's wait till next year. So they let the ice keep the British from coming up the Hudson River. Keep in mind, this is around the time when George Washington, the Continental Army, lost New York City, had to retreat across New Jersey into Pennsylvania, and then would make their 10 crucial days when they twice crossed the Delaware River to attack British garrisons in New Jersey. So that's where the British were occupied in 1776. But in 1777, they come back, and they come back with a gentleman who actually was the one that came up with this chain idea, and his name is that's the Fort Casey paperwork. We're gonna get to that shortly. There we are. His name was Thomas Machin. Thomas Machin was appointed by General Washington to find a way to block the Hudson River. Machin's initial efforts by just stringing a chain across the river didn't work out. But in 1777, what they did was they put the chain in a diagonal line across the Hudson River. That way, it had a much better support against the water pressure. This time, it worked. Now, in addition to putting the chain in the spring of 1777, the Patriots are also going to fortify around Anthony's Nose. They're going to build Forts Montgomery and Fort Clinton on the west side of the Hudson River, opposite of Anthony's Nose. Now, the problem was trying to get people to garrison these forts. It was hoped that the Continental Army would send 1,000 troops to garrison these key positions that were guarding and maintaining the chain. They probably only had about 600 Patriots in total, a mixture of Continentals under the name of Israel Putnam, as well as New York militia that was commanded by Governor Clinton and his brother, who guarded Fort Clinton. That's why it's called Fort Clinton. Let me double check their names down here. George Clinton was the New York governor. He commanded the troops at Fort Montgomery, and he sent his older brother, James Clinton, to the namesake fortress. With about in total, they had about 600 guys to hold all this. Not the numbers you want. And in 1777, John Burgoyne has come up with his master plan to end the revolution, which was to divide New England from the rest of the colonies. Now, Burgoyne hoped that all of the British generals would cooperate with them. That includes General Henry Clinton, not the other Clintons we're talking about. This is a British Clinton. Henry Clinton, General Howe, and Cornwallis. He hoped they would all cooperate with his plans. They didn't. There's still debate over what happened. Burgoyne proposed a strategy to have free armies advance into the Hudson River Valley. He would lead one from Montreal south. He hoped General Howe would come from New York going north to meet him. And then there was a third army. I think his name was General Set Ledger. He would come down, he would deviate to Lake Ontario and come toward Albany, New York from the west. A triangulation of fire, as they would call it. Well, as history knows, General Howe did not link up with Burgoyne. General Howe left New York in charge of General Clinton, and Howe went over up the Delaware River, landing in Pennsylvania, defeating Washington on the outskirts of Philadelphia, and capturing the Patriot City in 1777. He got all that glory, but the problem was, congratulations, you bagged the capital. Continental Army is still a threat, and General Burgoyne's army are pinned down at Saratoga, New York. So Clinton is going to send forces from New York up to try to relieve Burgoyne. So they're coming up from the rear of the Patriot Army that was at Saratoga. Well, here comes Clinton's force. They're coming up the Hudson River, and they encounter the Great Chain and Forts Clinton and Montgomery. They couldn't just go through the chain. They had to disembark the troops, and they had to try to outflank the two fortifications by land. Now, they had superior numbers. An interesting detail, this force was made up of British regulars, was made up of Germanic troops, and was made up of loyalist forces. So these are American colonists that have sworn their allegiance to the crown, and they're going to fight the war as such. And they're facing off again against New York militiamen, who are going to know some of these loyalists coming to attack their forts, and a force of Continentals. The New York garrisons try to hold out valiantly, but they just don't have the numbers. Fort Clinton falls, then Fort Montgomery falls. The Continentals evacuate up the Hudson River to link up with Horatio Gates' force at Saratoga. The British dismantle the chain, continue forward. They actually are able to raid Kingston, New York in 1777, but too little too late. Though they had taken the chain, it had delayed them long enough to compel General Burgoyne to surrender his British forces to General Gates at Saratoga. The first time the British Army had surrendered in the field in hundreds of years this had happened. It was crazy. So chain was compromised, but it had proved effective. And General Washington told Macon, hey, I want you to build a better one next year. So in 1778, in winter of 78, no less, they're going to start casting a brand new chain. And Macon, this time, he has control over its design. So we're no longer using leftover chain. This is all designed with the intention for military use. And they're going to relocate the chain to West Point, where a redoubt has been established for a number of years during the Revolution, but they're going to beef up the West Point defenses to protect the entirety of the Hudson River Valley. A little bit about this chain and how it was designed. Yeah, I have to use my notes. I know. It would come to consist of 750 individual links that were tethered by 8 different swivels. Those swivels would rest on wooden barges that were waterproofed with tar and oakum. There also were 80 clevises to be able to link all the different chains together. In total, the new chain was over 500 yards across the Hudson River, anchored by 2 stone ballast points. And of course, with artillery emplacements on either side of the river and the garrison at Fort West Point to overlook it. And Macon also realized, we need to make sure this chain is able to, that we can remove this chain quite easily in case a friendly boat is coming through, because important smelting works are along the Hudson River Valley, Spencer. Over down to, I dropped my name last week. You guys all know this, right? So, you have to give me some slack. I specialize in researching the Ohio River Valley, not the Hudson River Valley. So, they're going to build this fort at West Point. And the West Point garrison's job is to raise and lower the chain. So, Macon thought about actually being able on the western side of the chain to be able to raise and lower it. And as I mentioned a bit earlier, that there are key smelting works that are in the Hudson River Valley that are supporting the Patriot cause. Something I found interesting, and I'll drop the article when we're done talking. 14% of the world's iron production actually came from North America during the Revolution. So we talk a lot about the Patriot cause lacking supplies, which is true. They didn't have the infrastructure that Europe had, but raw resources, completely different story. So where the British, they had the infrastructure, but they had to go buy all these raw resources. The United States had the advantage of, we have unlimited power in timber to make charcoal. So I had to write it down, the name of the works. The Sterling Iron Works. There it is. That is where the iron that was smelted down to make these chains. The Sterling Iron Works in Chester, New York. Although there is a dispute. Some are saying that some of the iron ore came from New Jersey, which is very likely. This is an enormous undertaking for the young United States of America, building this giant chain. The chain was raised in 1778. The British never tried to attack it. Mostly because they had their hands tied with other messes. George Washington, the Continental Army, had driven. General Clinton had gone from New York to Philadelphia to relieve Howe. Yeah, Howe got in trouble for abandoning the plan to link up with Burgoyne. Clinton evacuated Philadelphia. Washington gave chase. Drove Clinton off at the Battle of Monmouth, which I got a nice video about here on the channel. An episode of Construction Paper Battlefield. And Clinton and the British Army were impounded in New York City for the rest of the war. There was a lot of skirmishing, however, along the Hudson River Valley thereafter, including a very daring raid by the colonists at Stony Point in 1779, which is a story for a whole other day. No gunpowder needed for that one, only bayonets. The chain would be taken out in the winter months and then reinstalled come spring. They just let the ice deter the British from coming up. And it remained in place all the way through 1783 when the British Army leave the United States. The United States officially has won its independence. After the Revolutionary War, the chain was dismantled, kind of sat as a heap of scrap on both sides of the river. West Point graduates would see it all the way through the 1830s. A lot of it was eventually scrapped for future war efforts. However, about a dozen chains were saved, and you can actually view them today at the West Point garrison. So I should show you this image. This is Macon overlooking the construction of the chain here, and you can see the logs, how they use it to keep it out of the water. This is the surviving links that are on display at West Point, but there's actually links all across the country today. And yeah, that is the story of the Hudson River chain and how it had saved the United States butt a few times during the Revolutionary War. Well, he's getting angry. I said, well, New Jersey may have supplemented some of the iron. No, there was an iron mine in Putnam County, New York that made the chain. All the iron. Okay, all the iron. It's okay, Tim. All the iron went to New York and possibly New Jersey. No, the chain is just one of these, because when you hear about like a chain, you're like, oh, is this like a fortified chain? No, it's a literal chain that they strung across multiple times, and it worked. And again, this is a lot of people are surprised to learn that this is a tactic that's been used before and since these blockage of rivers. They are highly effective. You might be able to get through them, but it's going to take time to get that all out. And then Pritchard Pub, USA, USA. Tim's going to start chanting that soon. Come on, Tim. We mess with you because we love you. You're denied to me now. USA, USA. Oh, there's the smile. And Tripty Soul arrives from Trivia Night. Oh, hail. I arrive. I click like. I leave. Need a prep for Trivia Night. Have a good time. Good time. There better be It's a Wonderful Life questions. Better be It's a Wonderful Life questions. And Die Hard questions, too. Let's see, have I missed anything? No. So, that was Tim Allen's request. I hope you enjoyed it, Tim. My rendition of the Hudson River chain. Oh, do you want to finish that one, Kahuna? I'm fine. I had my share of banquet last night, and I'll have plenty more banquet this coming Sunday for the holiday season. I personally don't do eggnog. The milk and the alcohol mixed together. Nope, not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. No, I'm not going to dab. You can dab, Pritchard. I'm not going to dab. All right, so moving forward. What else we got? Fort Casey. Fort Casey. Here we are, Fort Casey. We're here. We're jumping from the East Coast to the West Coast. And this is another request by Maji-chan. I gotta get the paperwork out. This was part of a series of fortifications that protected Puget Sound and the early 20th century. This is the one in particular that she's been shouting out, but it is part of a system of fortifications. All right, so where do I begin with this? Again, I gotta get a good image up. I could just keep them all up here. So, I gotta get better with sharing links. Hold on, guys. I gotta share the link for the last article. Gotta share the link for the last topic. There you are. Links in the description point. I do not have a video about the eggnog riot. The Fat Electrician has a wonderful video about the eggnog riot, and we may or not be getting to that, gentleman, before the night's over. Just stay around. Yeah, it's great. Where Jefferson Davis just the great Jefferson Davis, the ultimate failure of West Point, the only man to get caught for going out to get drunk. The only man. Everybody succeeded in going out to the tavern except him. Links in the description, by the way, guys, if you want to go read more about the Hudson River chain. Okay, Fort Casey. No, don't get distracted by eggnog. Why? Oh, you guys are getting distracted by eggnog. So, Fort Casey. It's located on the Puget Sound, one of 3 key fortifications that provide a triangulation of fire to ensure that no enemy ship would try to attack the United States from present-day Washington State. We got to go all the way back to the Polk administration in the 1840s to learn why this was even here. President Polk in 1846 famously went to war against the country of Mexico. Used very shaky reasons as to why we went to war. It was to expand the United States, and everybody knew it. And Polk's administration is highly overlooked. He only stuck around for 1 term, but in that 1 term, he shaked a lot of things up. Some for the better, some for the worse. And actually, the war against Mexico was one of the dividing lines between the northern and southern states. Northern states accused Polk of going to war with Mexico to expand the power of the southern states, which were slave states, because if you go by the Missouri Compromise, all that land that they're about to take is going to land under the Missouri Compromise line, making them a slave state, making them southern states, meaning the southern states would have power in Congress. So that was part of the argument of it. But in any case, Polk had grander visions than just taking the southwest corner of North America. He wanted to protect the northwest corner. And he talked with the U.S. Army and said, hey, I think we should start investigating about defensive ports from San Diego all the way up to Puget Sound. To which the U.S. Army went, there's nobody out there. Why are we going to go out there? Polk, of course, he had a vision for the future. He knew one day there would be people, the country would have cities out there. But the U.S. Army, they don't see the future. They only see the present. So they didn't do anything. Then comes the American Civil War. Again, the president, well, I should say right after the American Civil War, President Johnson is going to push the U.S. Army. Hey, we got the state of California now, state of Oregon. We're going to get more states out there on the West Coast. Probably should start building some fortifications on our Western coast, just like the East Coast. Go out there and tell me what you think about building forts. U.S. Army went, sure, we're going to do that right after we have our long coffee break of 30 years. It wasn't until the 1890s, when the West Coast was starting to get pretty well established, that finally a naval base was put in the Puget Sound, thus requiring that it had to have some fortifications. So the Army finally begins at the end of the 19th century looking around where should they put their defensive positions in the approach of Puget Sound. But with the onset of the War of 1898, this is going to quicken the pace of construction because now, oh, good gracious, the West Coast may actually be threatened because we're going to war with Spain, and Spain has naval ports in the Pacific Ocean in the Philippines. To which the U.S. Army goes, oh, I guess we finally have to build them darn forts after all. Okay, let's get to work, guys. And they're going to start building 3 major fortifications. Now, there are more than just these 3 forts. There are a variety of different outposts on the West Coast, and just in Washington State. We're focusing on these 3 to go into Puget Sound. Of the 3 forts that were built, there was, I got to look up their names. There was Fort Woodin or Warden. I misspelled that. I can't. I can't spell, guys. Okay. Fort W, we're going to call it Fort W, and Fort Flagler. I am so sorry I mispronounced these. I am sure Manji will be correcting me in the chat, and I appreciate those corrections. There were 2 other forts. One was on the west side of the bay. One was on the south side, and one was kind of in the northeast with its guns facing west and south. The one that was in the northeast corner, that is going to be Fort Casey. Fort Casey began construction in 1899, so it wasn't in service during the War of 1898. And if you're wondering what the War of 1898 is, it's my term for the Spanish-American War. I don't like that term because the War of 1898 was so small, and it's going to cause a chain of unfortunate events in the Pacific for many years to come that are far actually greater than America's War of Spain. So I call it the War of 1898 for that reason. It sounds more professional than Spam, the Spam War. Oh, the Spam War. No, not the digital spam. They started constructing Fort Casey in 1899 to protect Puget Sound, and this would create a triangulation of fire. Construction would go on all the way through 1903. But by 1902, the U.S. government announced that this fort was ready for operation. And the initial garrison would be on Wide Bay Island, which is the island that this fortification rests on. They would pull them. Trying to read down there. They were pulling from other coastal artillery units. 2 of them actually came from the neighboring fort across the bay. They also pulled 2 units from Alcatraz Island. I just thought that was an interesting detail, that the initial garrison partly came from Alcatraz Island. Not that they were prisoners, but at one point Alcatraz was actually a fortification before it became a prison. And then they're also going to pull a detachment of U.S. soldiers that were occupying Hawaii. So that's your initial mix. So those Hawaiian guys probably, I don't know if they enjoyed or were upset that they got pulled back to the continental U.S. They're probably happy to be back on the continent, the main of North America. Now they got to contest with the harsh winters and the rough seas of Washington State. This fort initially had I can't speak. Initially had 6 gun emplacements, although many more would be added throughout the first decade of the 20th century. And as such, on the eve of the First World War, it had 34 different artillery pieces. I mean, you can look at some of these photographs. There's some big boys. Some big boys. Some big boys, bigger than I'm used to using. Why can't I show the image? What's going on here? Oh, I gotta do that. Big boys. Some big beefy boys. That earlier detail, the lighthouse that was on Wood Bay Island, they actually had to move it several hundred feet to be out of range of the concussion of the artillery, because if they kept the lighthouse in its original location, the foundation would have shattered from the guns. So the government actually had to move that several feet. And that was done at the turn of the 20th century, like 19th into 20th century. Crazy. I've always been fascinated by how they were able to, and still today are able to just move buildings. Just a crazy idea. Now, with the First World War, there was a big need in Europe for artillery pieces. And with the United States entry into World War I, there was a need for the U.S. to use artillery pieces. So about 14 of the 34 pieces that were at Fort Casey were dismantled and sent over to Europe for use in combat. And following the First World War, well, the whole world thought, there'll never be another war again. We will totally learn our lesson from the trenches of Europe. Yes, absolutely. What is this thing about a funny man with a mustache? So they decommissioned Fort Casey, and I think they actually decommissioned some of the other posts that were defending Puget Sound. It was in a caretaker status. Essentially, there was somebody there, government paid, keep the buildings clean in case we have to turn the lights back on. And well, as we all know, they had to turn the lights back on with the Second World War. And just like we talked about Fort Snelling last week, this was also an induction center for servicemen and women going off to serve either in the Pacific or in the European theater. And they also replaced the early 20th century artillery pieces with anti-aircraft guns during the Second World War. Fort Casey remained in operation until 1953, when it was officially decommissioned by the Department of Defense, and then in 1955 was transferred over to the Washington State Park System. And gradually, they have been restoring Fort Casey, as well as the other major fortifications that were part of the defense of Puget Sound. And as you can see today, if you go there today, they have a lovely museum. It looks like Fort Casey, I'm looking at photographs of the other 2 fortifications. It seems like Fort Casey is the best preserved. The overgrowth is not as bad as some of the other forts that are on the west side of the Puget Sound. Some of the other ones are, they're cool looking, but they're highly overgrown in modern day forests. This one, you kind of get a better idea how these defenses were initially meant to serve. So yeah, that was sent in by Maji-chan. Fort Casey and other defenses of Puget Sound. I'm actually going to drop the link to 2. I used this one from his history links to get a good bit of my information about the triangulation of fire. Ooh, you can still walk through the outer wall. Flagler, Warden, and Casey. There we are. Do you eat spam with your mead, Tim? Fort W. Got a ring to it. It truly does. Somebody should use that in their work of fiction. Fort Redoubt W. You can literally call it that. It would be an Easter egg for this channel and it'd just be funny. Redoubt W. That's a challenge for your offers out there. I want you to find a way to have a fortification in your stories called Redoubt W. And it has to be got to be spelled like how Pritchard spelled it. Your chicken scratch. The pig war. The pig war is a story for another day, another time, another place. that is the historian's favorite comedy bit. Let's just put it that way. No, the pig war is just a meme. What would spam war be? I think spam would be more important. I'm talking the joke spam, not literally the Spanish American War, the War of 1898. All right. I've seen several videos on, like I've seen about I vaguely remember people going and exploring these ruins that were in the West Coast, and this must have been what it was. Did History Underground do videos on them? I swear that he did, because I remember there was one that they went in and like it was a state park, but the site looked abandoned. Like you could walk in and everything, but it looked very, very like little derelict. Like, do I really want to go in here type deal? But I would have fun exploring these. Oh God. And Emus won. They did win. All right. Hey guys, we're on the hour mark. We're not stopping anytime soon, but I just want to come in a pause again. Thank you guys for tuning in for this holiday special. I do greatly appreciate it. If you have not done so already, there's a nice little button down there with a thumbs up. If you hit that thumbs up, it'll let the algorithm know that you like long form content, that you are able to withstand knowledge. I know YouTube is very fearful. They're like, oh no, our audience, people can't actually study things for a period of time. They got to be shorts. So prove them wrong by hitting the like button down below. Let the algorithm know that history videos do matter. Do the same if you're watching on Rumble and on Facebook, because this is a triple stream tonight. Very exciting. Very exciting. All right. Oh, that was too far in. Did I post the link? I was chatting and then I posted. No, I didn't post the link. Oh no. I'm lazy. Oh wow. I get distracted so easily. I'm not going to read that, but you could do what Kahuna said. I'm not going to read what he said, though. There's the link in the description below, by the way, guys. All right. What do we got next? Okay, I think I've done. Oh, I know what's next. Okay, we've done the history segments. So, this is another suggestion. I believe is this Tim or Boncher that's been suggesting? I think they've both actually been. Or this is the mead meister. Anyways, this is the Fat Electrician, aka this is his second channel, the Fat Files, and he's been exploding on the internet lately, especially in the history community. I've been doing very fun videos about military history, the crazy events such as the Eggnog Riot of West Point, which is you'll have to go watch that yourself. That's just too long a video. I don't want to just play that for 15 minutes. Go watch it yourself. Give the viewer to him. But I was asked to react to this. And I've actually withheld watching it ever since. I don't have much context for it other than what the title says, which is President Joe Biden wants to unleash grizzly bears on a royal community. Also government cheese caves. And I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to, I have to do my thing, guys. I'm sorry. I have to X out. I got to remove the share because, and there's a reason for it, because when I want to share audio, I got to pick a tab. I can't pick the whole window. When you pick the whole window, it don't work. It don't work. Funny story about that. All right, there we are. So me, we're gonna tune in right now. We're gonna watch this interesting gentleman. He is quickly becoming one of the most interesting gentlemen alive on the internet, and he's gonna tell us all about grizzly bears. Okay, Tim. Okay, you're getting a little excited there.
This is probably going to come off pretty political, but I promise you it's just me being anti-bear. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't like bears. Anytime bears are involved, it's not going to be a good time.
Now, I can't speak much. My only bear encounter is a black bear. And it was one of those crazy things. They're like, well, this is happening. I was taking a detour to work because I was stuck behind a coal truck. And I'm like, I can maneuver to the east around the coal truck and, get to work that way. And it takes me through State Park by doing so. And I'm going down this hill. Now, I totally was going the speed limit. And I'm going down this hill. And I come around the corner and there's a driveway. And I kid you not, black bear just strolling across, like me, probably. I can't even use a measurement. You can't see. Wasn't too far away. I was fully able to see the bear. I applied the brakes, and it wasn't actually like I was going that. I was able to smoothly apply, come to a stop, and there I am for a whole minute, just watching this black bear just slowly do his thing. Walked out from the driveway. I presume he must have been raiding the trash cans. They were ready for pickup that day, And he walks across, and he actually walks down the road a few paces before he goes up the other road. It was very interesting. He basically made a crossing. He was more polite than most drivers. Now that's my close encounter with a bear. Just like, all right, that happened. Anyways, and then continue on my merry way. I didn't get
Okay, the
Leo.
Chicago Bears, terrible football team. A bear market. That means the economy's doing bad. And then you have grizzly bears, which are absolutely terrifying. So when I wake up one day and this is in the headlines, obviously I'm going to get a little bit of
U.S. drafts plans to bring grizzly bears to Washington's northern cast. Hey, look, we're staying in Washington State, huh? I didn't think that was going to happen. I guess this all connects somehow. Biden admin plan to release predator near rural communities face widespread opposition. A huge threat.
upset. Okay, it reads like I'm living in the Hunger Games. Basically, the Capitol is going to start systematically releasing grizzly bears near rural communities.
Yeah, that's clear.
I'm not about it.
Yeah,
But
that sounds like
adult,
something
I realize
President
that
Snow
news
would do.
headlines are pretty misleading, so I read the entire article, and it's pretty accurate. Basically, the federal government wants to release 7 grizzly bears every year for the next who knows how long into this area in Washington State, and they want to get that number up to 200 grizzly bears. Which brings us to the obvious question: why the fuck would you do that? And I have looked and looked for an answer.
You know, I will say, on paper, I'm all for if we're trying to reestablish a population of a native animal. But I sense there's a caveat with this, a major caveat.
Answer to this, and as far as I can tell, the only reason they want to start reintroducing bears into this part of the country is because fuck it, bears used to live there and bears are cool, I guess, is what their strategy is. Which, first of all, no, they're not cool. Okay, this isn't a fucking Disney movie.
Well, yeah, and also we're talking about grizzlies, which we're talking about a very different thing from the black bear I encountered.
That's not Baloo talking about the bare necessities in the forest. That's a 700-pound meat missile covered in fur that can run 35 miles an hour.
Look at it.
That eats its prey ass first, okay? There's nothing cute about that. Do you understand the gravity of what I've just explained to you? Brock Lesnar weighed 265 pounds when he was the world heavyweight champion. This bear is equivalent to 3 Brock Lesnars running at you at 35 miles an hour. And to put that into perspective, Usain Bolt tops out at 27.5 miles an hour.
Okay, yeah, never mind. No, not good idea.
Heart disease. We're definitely not going to be outrunning fucking grizzly bears if it comes to that. And I can hear the comment.
All right, I'm taking it back. Yeah, no, horrified beyond the capacity of rational thought. No, I don't need that running toward me. Why are we doing this again? What kind of bear is best? The bear that doesn't try to kill me. That's the type of bear that's best.
Comment section already. Actually, bears are more scared of you than you are of them. No, that's not true.
That's not how that
works.
That's not how that
7
works.
years old on your first camping trip, so that you would shut the fuck up and go to sleep, so we could bang your mom in the tent. Okay, that's not reality. And then you get all the.
Yeah, that's some advice I've been given. I've probably been a bit too partial to. Again, bears in a Pennsylvania state park. Very different from grizzlies. I can't speak here on the east and the west, So we were supposed to. I used to be in Boy Scouts. There's a reason I didn't continue in Boy Scouts. And the reason was when I got into Boy Scouts was around the time where there were about 3 or 4 really cool parents. And the rest of them, they weren't cool, at least not scouting cool. I'm sorry. If you're there for one of those watching, I'm sorry. Hopefully you're one of the 3 or 4 parents that were cool. But we always wanted to go do something that was actually Boy Scouts. We would never do anything that was Boy Scouts. Normally, the parents would just stick with the popcorn sales. We had a fight to do a chocolate sale because they're like, well, but we do popcorn and we get a discount. Yeah, well, nobody wants caramel popcorn. Nobody wants chocolate. Chocolate sells. Little Caesars actually is pretty fun to sell, though. If anybody has a Little Caesar sale, I'm always willing. You have a kid that needs to do a Little Caesar sale and are willing to give it across state, do the shipping across state. I'll do that. Anyways, we want to do like actual scouting activities. We didn't go camping. We didn't go on adventures. Rarely did we get to go and go to camporees and stuff like that. Remember what we did was we would sit in the basement of our church. We would read from our handbook. And then by reading our handbook, they gave us a badge. I sense there's some fraud there, which is why I didn't pursue and why I'm not going to profess to say I'm some great scout or anything, but that was my dull scouting life. And one of the things that made us go out was our scoutmaster didn't often show up. our assistant scoutmaster had a lot going on. All fairness to him, he had a lot on his plate. And they basically tried to put everything on my father. My father at that time, he was still active in the military, so he didn't have time to do it. But he was always coming up with cool ideas. But it was every time he came up with a cool idea, such as, and this is going to tie back to the bear story, I promise. The one idea was, why don't we go hiking on the local bike trail? Not in the woods. Like, we're going to go on a well-paved bike trail. It used to be a railroad grade. It's one of the most widely used trails in the country. And let's hike a segment of it. And we'll stay the night at one of the shelters. Half the parents stopped the idea because they're like, but there could be out away from a town. Well, yeah, it's the idea. We're going to pack food with us. But what if they're bears? We're scouts. We're going to be at a shelter on a paved trail that's used by more people than average trails. But bears. And that is why we were never able to do any actual scouting activities, because it always ended up like bears. And it's like, yeah, you're a scout. Go out in the wilderness. Scrape your knee at least once. It's painful, but it'll make you a better man. So that's my rant. Same, yeah. It's like, don't you ever heard "Don't Tread on Me," guys? Hey.
Environmentalist people, but the ones that live way far away from this area, because environmentalists never advocate for shit when it's actually in their own backyard and it affects them. But they're going to say some shit like, oh, the humans eradicated those kind, gentle creatures, and they used to live in that area, so we should really bring them back. No, okay, we used to have dinosaurs too, and there's an entire movie series about why bringing those back is a terrible idea, okay? Maybe we got rid of it for a reason. Have you ever thought of that? Because last I checked, the easiest way to get a city named after you on the West Coast is to get killed by a grizzly bear, and then they just name a city after you. And then we have to address the elephant in the room, because whether you're left, right, or center on the political spectrum, you have to admit that there is an extra layer of comedy in the fact that Joe Biden, of all presidents, wants to start releasing grizzly bears. Okay, look, I'm not a political analyst or like somebody whose opinion you should take very seriously, but I do think it's kind of...
Remember, we're talking about a gentleman who goes by the name of Fat Electricity. So I don't think this blue collar person totally has no idea, he's not on the level of our 78-year-old president. Okay, I'm just gonna shut up.
Bad taste to, on one hand, be like, I want to ban powerful guns because I don't think people need them. Also, I'd like to start releasing grizzly bears indiscriminately. Okay, look, I don't ever want to get asked why I need a high capacity magazine ever again. There's never been a better excuse.
You're releasing grizzlies? Yeah, it's like, can I have my guns? Yeah, it's like, hey, as long as I'm able to defend and do whatever you want, because as long as I'm able to defend myself. But you take that away, I can't defend myself against the grizzlies. Then we got a problem.
To have access to a lot.
He does have a point. 35 miles per hour. You're going to need more than just an elephant gun.
A lot of bullets.
Well, if you're a good shot, you only need an elephant gun.
The federal government colluding with grizzly bears. I mean, this has to be a joke, right? Like somebody at the White House is just being petty. Like these goddamn gun nuts want the right to bear arms. We're going to give them the whole fucking bear. Okay, look, regardless of whoever's in office, whether it's
literally, we're going to give them the whole bear.
Democrat or Republican, all I'm saying is that the federal government can't do anything without fucking it up. Okay, this is a terrible idea. You know what? Let me give you an example off the top of my head. In 1920, the United States government banned alcohol, okay? And overnight, every bar in the country...
yes, prohibition, a classic example of virtue winning and then totally backfiring and causing complete chaos in the country. Hey, let's just not do that. That sounded really good, that all of our problems from this one bottle. Turns out it really wasn't, and that crime finds its way in many different forms.
Either had to shut down or get turned into an ice cream parlor.
And again, never mess with a Yinzer and his bottle of rye.
So a bunch of them...
You hear that, Alexander Hamilton?
Did.
Don't do it ever. It don't end well.
And then you have all these people that would hang out with their buddies at the bar, and now they're hanging out at the ice cream parlor. So in many ways, ice cream filled the social gap left behind by alcohol. Got that? Okay, wonderful. By 1924, people didn't quit drinking alcohol as much as the U.S. government would like, so they decided that they were just going to start poisoning alcohol and giving it out to Americans. 41 of them died for sure. Some estimates go up to as many as 10,000.
So the government killed people.
Being poisoned. Okay,
the government killed civilians of their country. What a shocker.
Fast forward 1933, prohibition gets phased out, but you have an entire generation of children that grew up eating ice cream every day because it was the social bond that held America together because it had replaced alcohol. So the United States government needed to have a bunch of milk because they were going off to World War II and all their soldiers loved eating ice cream.
It's like, oh, we raised this generation to love this product that has to be refrigerated at all times and got to be transferred everywhere. And now we have to have the infrastructure, and else they're not going to fight.
And frozen dairy treats. This is why to this day, every Navy ship has an ice cream machine on it, and it's like mandated by naval code or whatever. And because the US government needed all this ice
Gotta be honest, it's probably one of the best codes to have in the Navy book.
cream to feed their army, they needed a bunch of milk to make that ice
Our country is so awesome that we require every one of our carriers to have an ice cream machine.
cream with. And dairy farmers weren't even a thing yet because refrigeration had just come out.
The Brits had the red code to intimidate their foe. The Yankee got his ice cream scoop.
And it had never been feasible for one man to just harvest a bunch of milk from a ton of cows. It had never been done before in human history. And at first, it works out great. Okay, fast forward, World War II ends, the Allies win, the world is saved from the Nazis and the Imperial Japanese. Hooray. Now, the army went back home, they can buy their own ice cream, and these dairy farmers don't have anybody to sell all this milk to, and the government's not about to let the dairy industry just collapse because they're the ones that convinced all these people that they had to become dairy farmers in the first place. So the government is like, fuck it, I'll buy all the milk. And then the government's like, what do we do with all this milk? And somebody says, hey, let's turn it into cheese. That way it can sit on a shelf for a little while without going bad.
I sense
a
segue.
Stacking up, and they're like, fuck it, we're just going to go hide it in a mountain in Springfield, Missouri. So that's what they did. They just kept shoving cheese into these caves every
Of all the places, Springfield. It all makes sense now. It all makes sense now why in The Simpsons the Caucasians are yellow. It makes sense now.
year. And every new president that came in, they're like, he has to sit through the briefing where they're like, yo, guess what? The US government is buying all this milk, turning it into cheese. There's a mountain of cheese in Springfield, Missouri.
This is the lore, and I'm building it, that the reason Homer and all the Simpsons and all the people that are in Springfield is, yeah, they ate too much government cheese. Turn their skin yellow.
Life. It's a thing, and we can't stop buying the cheese. We don't know what to do with it. Then Ronald Reagan gets elected, and he's like, "We're spending $1 million a day
Look at
in
that cheese head,
refrigeration
even though
for
it's
a
not
bunch of
cheese head.
cheese that nobody's eating. We have to get rid of it." So he proposes to the U.S. people, "Hey, hear me out. I've got 500 million pounds of cheese. I want to throw it in the ocean." Okay, they get mad and they're like, "No, we paid for the cheese. We would like the cheese at a minimum. You've taken our money. You've turned it into cheese. Give us the fucking cheese." Okay, it's a relatable human emotion. So the government cut up all the cheese into 5-pound blocks and started handing it out to people. And this is where government cheese comes from. Okay, so that goes on for a while. Fast forward, Bill.
I've been told that government cheese was really good, by the way. At least that's what my parents and my grandparents informed me. May also be because that was the only cheese they got, but you know.
Clinton ends up getting elected, and he's like, "I have an idea about how to solve this milk cheese cave situation conundrum."
I just realized I'm probably sound like a complete madman to the rest of the people in this house, including the cats. We start talking nice, eloquently, talking about, I was debating this important matter of YouTube shorts and how it's damaging future generations' attention spans, and now I'm ran about government cheese.
FDA, I'm going to have them form an offshoot nonprofit company known as DMI, Dairy Management Incorporated. Except this isn't going to be a nonprofit.
There's the proof.
Where like they take charitable donations.
Tim has spoken.
We're going to make it a legal requirement for every dairy farmer in America to give these people a portion of their money so that they can advertise for them, because apparently milk and cheese isn't good enough.
Are you heading up?
Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell
you heading up?
Got Milk ad campaign that was.
Are you heading up a cheesehead meeting there? Are you debating how we're going to resurrect government cheese skunks? Okay. All right, I won't shush the fat electricity anymore.
In every school cafeteria for like 3 decades is a government-funded psychological operation to convince people to drink more fucking milk because the U.S. government fucked up buying ice cream in the 1940s. And now they want me to not own guns while simultaneously trusting their ability to systematically release fucking grizzly bears.
That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Okay, I'm done. I need a beer. Thanks for watching. Best Way Sports channels. Go buy some merch over thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
You know, there are millions of ways you can use history to explain why you should never trust the words, "We're from the government and we're here to help." That's just one way that the fat electrician eloquently put it. And this is why I love history. It's for the crazy stuff like this, the crazy avalanches, I like to call them. So links in the description below. And at least go over, if you're not going to watch, go over right now and hit the like button on his video, since we did watch it whole way through. So at the very least, go over the link right now, hit the like button to show the support. I always want to be able to support. Oh, there's more. There's more. You're scaring me. You're scaring me, Tim.
I'm probably never going to upload this video, but we'll see what happens.
Well, you did. And we watched it. Is that really it? Okay, that's really it. Okay, I see what I had to watch the end. I finished the video. I finished it. I finished it off. Yes. All right. All right. What else was I going to rant about tonight? What else? I got a couple more subjects, but I'm just going to actually pop in briefly over here. The next subject I want to talk about, certain somebody suggested, but that certain somebody just stepped out for a bit. So I'm going to just delay it a few more minutes, and then we'll start. So hopefully he has time to listen in what he suggested. And everybody ran away at the thought of that. They're like, "Oh no, my ugly grill is on camera. Run for the high heels." What are you going to expect? Frequency's over on Rumble, by the way. I need to respond to him. I've been meaning to. I thought they all rode around on unicycles. Bears? Maybe. Only a P.T. Barnum stuff. And da Bears. Da Chicago Bears. God, that was a great segment. I like to my favorite segment of the what was it, the Dicta fan club, was when it was the one where after they broke up and Coach Dicka went to the Saints, and the one brother, he had his this sweater on of a split Saints, split Bears, and had it sewed together. And he was living on a camper at the geographic middle point between Chicago and New Orleans. That was one of my favorite moments of that whole comedy sketch. So, what is going to come down? So, I want to let everybody know, next year, which I know sounds really long off, but really it's only a week. Next year, we are going to create a archive channel for Uncut History. So after much thought, and I've been listening to other YouTubers I follow, like Captain Garrett and A Drink with Crazy, and it seems like to work the algorithm, essentially, YouTube don't like these live streams, which is very weird. They want you to go live, but they don't want you to keep those live streams. But I'm a historian and I want to preserve these streams. So starting next year, we're going to create an archive channel, and I'm going to gradually be taking the live streams off of the main channel, and they're going to be uploaded over there. That again, I'll do that after the holiday. Got a lot going on right now. So I'm going to create that after the holiday. So when that comes out, be sure to subscribe to it, because that'll be where you can watch all these old streams. I'll probably leave the streams up for about 3 to 4 weeks on the channel going forward before I pull them off and archive them over there. I got to find a way to see if I can mirror the archive over to Rumble, or Rumble already mirrors. So I've had a weird situation. I don't know if anybody else has had it. When you stream on Rumble, I set the system up to stream for StreamYards, and then it'll make a copy, because it's mirroring my channel. So I end up with 2 copies of the live stream all the time on Rumble. So maybe I might not have to make a mirror for Rumble, since it already totally does it. So I just want a heads up on that. That's coming down in the near future. Just be aware of that. There's going to be 2 more videos out this week. Next week, well, this Saturday, we got a very, very big video. Although it's not the most high-tech video, there's just a lot of information in it. You've seen my cryptic adverts for it on yesterday's Comic Shop Wednesday. You saw me posted on the Twitter, or the Twix, on Monday into Tuesday. So yeah, got a big video coming out Saturday. It's my Christmas special. Technically, last year we did a Christmas special. Technically, it was about the Franklin Nashville campaign of 1864, which ended in December. So I'm like, it generally counts. It's in the holiday season because I'm weird when I make holiday videos. It's gonna be the same thing this year. It's not a military history though. It's something very different. Those that know, you've already guessed likely what I'm talking about. And then the last video for the year will be a trip tapes, and that'll be all the B-roll from the recent retracing history videos that took place in Gettysburg. Don't do these Twix things you speak of. Well, you're not missing much. You really aren't. You really aren't missing much. I'm trying to get repositioned. Got to get the coffee in. It's good coffee. Good coffee. All right. All right. So, we have one final topic. Well, we have two final topics. This is the last viewer's... Well, do I do the viewer's choice? Do I talk about the movie? Let's talk about the movie recommendation first. Yeah, let's talk about the movie recommendation. So Maji Chan asked earlier, what was that George Washington movie? What was that all about? Well, you're about to find out once I share the darn screen. It's the dead air is hit. You know, I'm envious of people like Captain Garrett. That guy can go for like 4 or 5 hours on a stream, no energy loss. Me, after an hour, boom, dead. I should just give me the whole window. Okay, you asked earlier, where's that George Washington clip? And I've been using it for a number of weeks now on the stream. It comes from this movie, and this is Redoubt's Christmas movie recommendation for the season. Of course, everybody's gonna watch the Rudolph animated films. Of course, you're going to watch stuff like Christmas Vacation and watch Christmas Story to death, most likely, and watch God knows how many versions of the Christmas Carol. But I'm here to get you fixed up with historical Christmas movies. And that is The Crossing. Now, you may have not heard of it, and it's not a theatrical release. This was a made-for-television production. It came out in 2000, starring Jeff Daniels, and it is a dramatization of the Delaware River crossing. Now, I got to be technical. There are actually three Delaware River crossings, because there's the first time when Washington retreated across the Delaware River. Then there's the famous one where he recrosses the river to sack Trenton. Then there's the third one where he decides he's getting a little greedy. He's like, I'm going to go for a second time. He goes again across the river and is going to sack Princeton of its British garrison. Although that time that was a permanent move over. And then they drove the British all the way back into central New Jersey and went into quarters at Morristown that year. So this is talking about the famous one, the famed painting of Washington on the prow of the boat, which we all know is highly inaccurate, though it's still a very interesting painting because of all the people represented in the boat. They're all symbolic to represent elements of the Continental Army at that point. Now, the track record of making American Revolution movies is, not gonna lie to you guys, not really good, especially with recent. We really don't got a lot of recent productions relating to the American Revolution. I think a lot of people are gun shy with trying to deal with the subject matter, partly because it's a monumental subject matter to cover and you want to do it right. And honestly, I think there's just people that are worried that, oh, it might offend somebody. Oh no, people were different before our times, and we're not adults to understand that. The Crossing is the exception from this rule. This is a fantastic portrayal of the Delaware River crossing. I have my gripes. I'm really not going to get into them because it's superfluous for the most part. If you want to get a good idea of what this crossing and the ensuing attack on Trenton was like and why it's important, this is it. It starts about 2 days before the actual crossing, showing the retreat, the chaos after the Continental Army lost New York. Goes into the Continental Army, basically going to this boat owner's home and telling him that, well, we're going to use your boats. We have nothing to pay you with. And the owner is reasonably upset, like, oh, what are you guys? You're supposed to be for freedom and everything. Here he comes, stealing my boats. You know, and it definitely And, something that happened quite a lot during the revolution where the Continental Army had no money or except paper currency, which was worthless. And there was this whole thing where they were jading a lot of the civilian population as a result, which was something Washington was getting frustrated by because he knew he had to maintain good relations with the civilians in order to win support for the independence movement. So they crossed over. And I really don't want to turn this into a retelling because I'm trying to save the retelling of the Delaware River crossing that hopefully in theory this channel's around in 2 years' time. So we can talk about on the 250th. But it recounts from there on, shows them going into quarters in Pennsylvania. That sequence you see in my intro is where Washington basically lays it down what he wants to do, and he doesn't care. He's like, I want your opinion, but I'm doing it whether you're with me or without me. There's a fun sequence right after where he basically tells Gates to get the hell out, which I think is highly embellished on how Washington treated Gates. But Gates, yeah, it warms my heart whenever Gates gets drummed out of something because Horatio Gates, boy, his career was inflated by a lot of other individual successes, not by his own. Saratoga is a perfect example. Benedict Arnold had a lot to do with the victory at Saratoga, not Gates himself. Then it shows the crossing the Delaware, and what I highly appreciate in this movie, which it did occur on the night of December 25th, so it makes it a Christmas movie. This is a Christmas movie, the most American of Christmases, crossing the Delaware River to go attack the Hessians in the following morning. They don't put him at the prow of the ship, and there is a sequence which, from the little bit I've gathered, is pretty on point, where he's trying to, because everybody's kind of in awe that in real life that here comes General Washington and he's just going to sit in the middle of this boat like a commoner with his lips shut. And yeah, he basically sits in, says a little bit of a crude joke. I don't know if he actually would have said, but it's just hilarious. He just breaks the tension. Like, okay, guys, I think it was like, don't swing your balls or something like that, or you're going to swamp the whole boat. Sits in the middle. They row over, and then they do a pretty good job of depicting the attack on Trenton, which was a surprise attack. They filmed the sequences in Toronto, which worked to their favor, that they had a small village that looks right out of the 18th century, which is appropriate for Trenton at that point. Trenton was not a big city yet. It was this very small town, central, with a barracks for the Hessians in the center of it. By the way, those barracks are still standing. You can go visit them today. Wonderful museum. I've got to meet several of their volunteers and staff members, yet to get the chance to get out there. May change that next year. But this is a fantastic Revolutionary War film that I enjoy. It has its inaccuracies. Primarily, I feel the Hessian costuming is very cheap, especially compared to the American costuming. Nevertheless, I had a blast watching it. This is as true of an American Christmas that you can get. So if you want a dramatization of the Delaware River crossing to watch for Christmas, definitely check out The Crossing. Somebody has posted it for free on YouTube, which was probably should not share the link, but I'm going to anyway. So if you want to watch it, it's an hour and a half. Definitely worth checking out. And yep, you're watching me. Redoubt is condoning piracy. I didn't say that. You didn't say that either. But, here's a link in the description below if you want to go. It's on YouTube right now. Might get deleted later on. There you are. Hey, look, Skunks is back just in time. We've been waiting for you, Skunks. Oh, he did a video on it. Oh, I'll have to watch that. We're not going to do it tonight because I don't want to just stream endless fat electrician videos. But I will go see that. I promised him. Probably right after I'm done the stream. Well, I'll probably watch it right after the stream. We have one final subject matter, and it's Gun's Workshop suggestion. He wanted me to give my thoughts on Princess Mononoke. So, of course, this is a Studio Ghibli film that was released in 1997. It came right before he would release Spirited Away in 2001, and I kind of think Spirited Away stole a lot of Mononoke's thunder. And maybe that's just me being biased. I mean, again, you can't see. I totally don't have a whole case displaying memorabilia relating to the movie over here. No, I never would do that. This is my favorite Studio Ghibli film. This is my favorite animated film This is my favorite film of all time. No ifs, ands, or buts. The only thing that can rival this is John Carpenter's The Thing, which is a very different film to rival against. Now, I have many films that I consider my favorite films, and that's why I really can't do my favorite, like a rank my favorite films in order. Like, there's probably about like 30, 40 of them that I'm like, they're my favorites. But there is only one that I can absolutely say, yep, that's it. I can't live without this film. This is it. And that's Princess Mononoke. Why? Why is it this film? Why isn't it? You're probably expecting to say it like Gettysburg, or you think I'd be talking about The Crossing. I just talked a lot about The Crossing, or talking about all these different historical films, considering I'm a historian. I saw this film at a time I was just starting to get into Japanese animation. Growing up as a kid, I liked Pokemon. I jokingly called that. I liked Pokemon, but I really didn't understand that it came from another country. I just enjoyed it. But outside of that, I really wasn't into anime, which is ironic considering my favorite show growing up, not counting the Civil War Journal, was Avatar: The Last Airbender. Is it under that America? Oh, it is under that America Has No Chill. Okay. I see what you're saying. So I watched this in around 2015. This was around time I was really reconsidering, like, hey, animation can actually considered a full-on art form. It's not just for little kids. Of course, I was a teenager. I was trying to rebel. I'm like, I don't want to be around the kiddie stuff. I don't want to watch Disney stuff. And I actually never really did grow up on Disney stuff. But I'm like, I don't want to watch it now. And I partly regret that. I'm now gone back and seen some really good Western animated films. I can enjoy them more now. I can see I definitely missed a few things growing up. Or unintentionally missed a few things. But point being, I was in my teenage phase, want to try distance self from animation, but then I started watching some of the stuff that was coming out of Japan. It was a lot of older, well, by that point, it was at least older stuff. Weirdly enough, the anime that changed my opinion was Digimon Tamers. Because I made fun of Digimon and like everybody in the room got very quiet and was like, just watch Tamers. I'm like, why? You'll understand. And then that started making me go see stuff like the movie Akira, made me start researching shows such as Cowboy Bebop. So I had a small, like, okay, I like anime, but it's very particular things. And I ever hear everybody say, you gotta watch Studio Ghibli. And I'm like, oh, they look like Disney for Japan. I'm really trying to get away from the Disney stuff. No, you don't understand. I'm like, Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro. This really isn't for me. Now I see a cover with a feral girl covered in blood with a mean looking wolf. Okay, that's for me. And I kid you not, that is the reason I watched the movie. And I had really no other idea what I was getting into. And everybody was really saying, everybody would put this second to Spirited Away. They're like, no, this is the other. This is the adult Miyazaki. Okay, I'm going to watch it. What is this going to be? And then 2 hours later, this was my favorite movie ever. I'm going to give a very brief recap of this movie if not watch it. It is set during the Muromachi period in Japan, which is usually about the 13 through 1500s. I personally think it's in the very end of the period. Everybody tells me it's actually in the early point. I argue against them because then it wouldn't make sense because there's firearms in it. But then again, it's a fantasy. I shouldn't really focus much on it. Late Muromachi period, at a time when Japan's not united, all sorts of different shogunates, different lords are fighting to try to unify Japan under their image. Ashitaka is actually a prince of a group of Amishi who were indigenous to a particular part of Japan. They are not tied in with the Yamato people, which are the people descended from the sun god that eventually essentially dominate all of Japan. And when you get into the hyper, nationalism that comes in Japan during the 19th and 20th century, it comes from that. But they had pushed other ethnic groups to the fringes of Japan. The Amishi were one of them. In the story, they're one of the it says it's like the last clan of Amishi, which isn't fully true, but it's meant for the height, and it gets the point across, like what was going on to them during the Muromachi period. Ashitaka is trying to defend a small village that's pretty isolated from the rest of Japan from a demon god. He is able to defeat it, but he gets cursed as a result. And he is basically told, if you want to go find a cure, you can go west, because that's where it looks like this bullet came from that killed him. But if you leave, you're dead to us. You can't come back because we're trying to keep secret up here. You're cursed. We don't think you're going to come back from your curse. So he's dead. He's lost his old way of life. Moves to the west, finds this village. And it's being ran by a person by the name of Lady Eboshi. And there's a whole, I can get into Lady Eboshi. There's so much to her backstory. But Lady Eboshi is essentially trying to build this small village based on the iron industry. And if you remember, I talked about the iron industry in Japan a number of weeks ago on Uncut History. So he comes to Irontown, where he believes that this is where the bullet that killed the boy that cursed him came from. He ends up finding himself stuck in this war between Irontown, which is trying to cut a bit of, just trying to cut out a bit of a living out of this forest, but that is going to invoke the ire of the creatures in the forest, which are represented by different spirits that have humanoid voices. And basically their main, I guess you want to say their main figure, their ambassador between the two worlds is San, Princess Mononoke. And Ashitaka tries to play for the rest of the movie mediator between these two warring factions and try to find some way that they can coexist. On paper, this should not work. I should not like this. I really do not like stories that are heavy on environmental messages. Not that I don't support environmental messages, but I'm so used to Western media butchering it. It's humans are evil and they are corrupt and there's nothing good in humanity. And it's perfect to be one with nature. And nature is perfect and nothing violent ever happens in nature. Yeah, that's a load of crap that's been fed through fed into us for decades now. And people are generally starting to buy it. There's another reason I adore this film. It's its portrayal of warfare. We're so used to mainstream movies that demonstrate war as usually the good guys versus the bad guys, which you can't escape that mentality, especially if you're telling a movie from a certain point of view. You're, of course, going to want to support the hero perspective. That can be if you're watching something like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. If you're going to watch something like Saving Private Ryan, of course, it's going to be told from the American perspective. But also stuff like Das Boot, which is about a German U-boat crew. Of course, you're going to sympathize with the U-boat crew. There are the eyes and ears. Doesn't mean we necessarily agree with their actions on either side, but it's like, these are the people we're going to sympathize with. So it comes with the point of view, but also can be greatly mistreated where, we get caricatures of these enemy sides and then we start dehumanizing these people. And then we think it's so easy to go off to war. And then we repeat the same mistakes as our predecessors. And we're going to keep doing it because people keep still falling into this trap. They don't do that in Princess Mononoke. It's set up both sides are given valid arguments as to why they're fighting. Obviously, the forest has a valid reason to fight because, hey, our land has been invaded. These people are destroying our homes. We're going to try to drive them out. But they do it in a manner that is very vicious. These are animals that are going in and, mutilating people, chewing on them, cursing them, laying curses on them. San is a bat out of hell in one of the greatest animated sequences of all time, one of the best action sequences I've ever seen. San single-handedly invades Irontown and takes out all the guards. It is brutal. You should not regale in it, but it's pretty awesome. Sure, she has one idea to solve this whole war, and that's to kill Lady Eboshi. And anybody who stands in her way, she has no problem taking their heads off. But on the other side, you've got Irontown, which, yes, they've come in and, they're destroying this forest, but they're using it because they're trying to build a living for themselves. And most of the civilians most of the people living in Irontown, these are refugees. These are people that did not have their drags in other societies. They've been chased out of other kingdoms in Japan. They don't want nothing to do with the shogunates and the lords that are going to war. They're trying to be independent. They're trying to build their own life. And this is the only way they're going to survive in this very turbulent time in Japan. So they're going to try to defend themselves and defend their way of life. So, and they do it, granted, not in the best way. They don't understand the forest creatures. They're like, oh, well, they're, how do we communicate with them? They're these ethereal beings. The only thing we know is to gradually keep cutting down the forest, and that'll get rid of them eventually. That's the only way we can solve our matter. So both sides are given fair arguments as to why they're fighting this conflict, which make it very difficult to solve it. But we also are shown that, yeah, the tactics they're using are brutal and very inhumane, even though one of them are animals. It's just not good. Don't do this. It's destroying the landscape. It's destroying everything. It's mutually assured destruction, what they're doing. And the movie ends pretty ambiguous. I'm trying to keep it try to keep spoilers, but we end with, the immediate threat is resolved, but it looks like the force is going to lose eventually. That it's inevitable that they're going to lose. But hopefully everybody learns from this experience, this destruction that's been laid waste to. They've learned from their mistakes, and hey, maybe we can find a better way to our problems. We can mediate what we're doing on both sides. I'm trying to keep it ambiguous, so you go watch the movie. Go watch it. It's probably the best environmental message it's done. That's like, yes, humans play a direct role in the destruction, but we also need to cultivate the environment for our own survival. Is one of them, excess leads to destruction. It's like, have the right balance, but you start being excessive, there's the destruction. So good environmental message, but its depiction of warfare is one of the most mature depictions. It probably is the most mature depiction of warfare. Not in the graphic detail or the I'm going to show you the horrors of war. In the simple, this is conflict. This is why it starts. And usually the resolution is not pretty. And everybody commits a war crime before it's all said and done, no matter how you try to paint it. So, Skunks wanted to know my opinion. This is my favorite movie of all time. I think I want someday to do a video, but I really don't know. I really don't know how to do it, how to approach it. One idea I had to approach this movie, if I made a video on it, was taking examples from other conflicts and paralleling them to the lessons in Princess Mononoke. I don't know if that would work though fully, because it is it's in a fantasy setting. Though they like I said, it's set during the Muromachi era, and there's a lot of cool little nuggets that give you an illusion to what's happening in this period of time in Japan. At the end of the day, it's a story between gods and humans, and that's cool in its own end. Just heard fire truck must have ran past. Before we went live at 7, the fire alarm here in my little town, they're like, there's nothing in this little village. It went off 4 different times in an hour. I don't know what's going on. There's nothing immediately around here happening. Something good's not happening. Now, a little bit, I want to do a video on it. That's the short of it. I'm trying to think of a way. I want to give it its proper justice, because this is not me giving it its proper justice. I can say a bit more. What do you want, Lily? Do you want to be on camera? Well, you can't. Yeah, you can be on camera. Look. No, you're going to be on camera. Look. Why are you trying to run away now? You're like, I'm going to rub against you until you grab me. Now I don't like it. Now you're stuck on my coat. Now, if you keep going that way, there's wires. You don't want to go that way. Aren't you going to say hi to the audience? Oh, you don't even look too happy. You're just giving him the evil eye. Okay. Is this what you wanted? I can feel your tail wagging, so I know this is what you wanted. All right. Do you want to be put back down? Okay. You want to be... Yep. There we go. Okay. She should be happy for a little bit. Ashitaka, who's the main character, which a lot of people are thrown off by, because, I mean, Son is the poster child, literally the poster child for all the material that promoted this movie. Ashitaka is the main protagonist, and there was actually a debate between between Miyazaki and the other creators over what it should be called. He felt it should be called The Legend of Ashitaka, but everybody else was like, that's pretty dry, and I have to agree with the other guys. We need something more catchy, and Mononoke Hime, which is in the Japanese tongue, which is princess of forest and princess of spirits and beasts. That sold a lot more. I mean, that's probably why this movie sold what did. This movie, by the way, was the highest grossing film in Japan for a whole 3 months, because Titanic came out later that summer. And I think it was the first animated film to win the Japanese version of the Japanese Academy Awards, essentially. It was the first one to do it. And this is the one that really broke Ghibli into Western audiences, although it's not as well known today. Miramax released this film, which of course was a subsidiary of Disney. And then Spirited Away would be released under the Disney banner when it came out. And then we were off to the races with Ghibli, and Ghibli became almost mainstream. I'd say almost, didn't get quite mainstream, but it became far more widely accepted in the United States, but wouldn't have been without this film. This is the one that finally broke it's the one that finally broke the mold, even though I know Akira came out a few years earlier, but they didn't know how to market Akira. This was a little easier to market. But Ashitaka is the main character. I will be honest, he's more of a vehicle for neutrality. He doesn't really have too much to his character, which could be a ding. But to be fair, anything that he was before the movie is stripped away because of what happens to him. So it is one of them. He knows he's starting with a blank slate as he's going west. So that might have something to do with it. And it also in story has to do with the fact that he's cursed. He's told he's slowly dying. And the more that he uses his curse for sheer strength to try to stop this war, the more it's killing him. So I think that has something to do why he keeps his emotions pretty muted for certain parts of it. So yeah, he's pretty much the protagonist, basically a vehicle for neutrality. But then we get to see both sides fairly. We have a portion of the movie where we're exploring Irontown in all of its glory, and I mean that's honestly, it's just beautiful how they've illustrated this village. Or as I joke, hey, look, it's Pittsburgh in feudal Japan. So we get to see Lady Eboshi and why she's doing what she does. We get some very fun gun mechanics, and I'm all for 16th century gun mechanics. Yeah, boy, I want that stuff. Then he breaks up the fight between Eboshi and San, which is my favorite sequence in the whole freaking movie. If you've not seen it yet, go see the sequence. Then he takes San to the... Oh, yeah, we hear your motorcycle. Very impressive. He takes on to the forest. He gets healed by the forest spirit, though his curse not healed, and we get to see more of that perspective. We get to learn a lot about San's mother, her adopted mother, Moro. And Moro's basically trying so hard not to chomp off Ashitaka's head. It's just like... I gotta protect. I can't kill you because you did save my daughter, but leave here next morning. Then I will kill. If you don't, I will kill you. So, but yeah, there's every painting, every illustration could be made into a full framed artwork that could be put on your wall in this film. You gotta see it. Gotta see it. Gotta see it. Yeah, Tim. Yeah, Lily's a very PO'd cat. All of their stories do, though. What I'm saying about Princess Mononoke is not an exception. All of Ghibli's films do a good job of playing ambiguity, and in a way that doesn't seem cheap, or they're trying to pull back their punches because they're scared that the marketing will be upset if they try to be too ambiguous. No, it's sincere. Like, no, this is how it works. Oh, believe me, I can talk for hours, skunks. We're winding down, and the coffee's running low. No, I enjoyed his film. And after I saw this film, this is basically that moment. Like, okay, storytelling can be done in a whole different way. Most mainstream storytellers, they like their and tropes are good. Tropes are good, by the way. Please use your tropes to your advantage. Don't use them as crutches. Use them to your advantage. Like, okay, everybody likes this trope. Let's delve deeper into it. Mainstream storytelling, however, can't handle ambiguity too well. The rent is due on the coffee. Gotta hit the right. Hey, thank you for joining in, Wrangler. Enjoy your holiday. I know I'm rambling. We've entered those read out gushes about Princess Mononoke all night long. I can do that, guys. I can really do that. I enjoy this movie. I have to make it. Probably this winter, I'm gonna do a proper video on it because I don't hear too many people actually talking about its portrayal of warfare, its depiction of conflict. It's always focused on the environmental message, which again is its primary intent. I know it is, but it just does such a good job at showing this is how wars start, this is how they're going to go, and this is how they're gonna likely end. They're not They're not great beginnings, they're not great middles, and they're certainly not great ends. And nobody is clean once the first shots are fired. Also, I enjoy that this is a fantasy setting with actual firearms. That's always a bonus for me. I'm a firearm person. I work in with that. I'm not a swords and sorcery guy. I need my firearms. And not too many people shy away from firearms. And I get why, because you have to think of a really good in-universe reason to use them. So again, to see firearms in action in a major fantasy setting. And one final thing I want to mention. This film to me always brings to mind when I watch Princess Mononoke, there's few films that have the vista shots, the beautiful vista shots. The only other film that comes to it, Last of the Mohegans. And I think there is a lot to say about watching both of these as a double feature. Their plots aren't about the same thing, of course, but there is this overarching theme of warfare and the inevitability of what these wars are going to lead to the natural landscape. In Last Mohegans, it's talking about this group of Native Americans that are trying to survive the French and Indian War. And although they're the main protagonist lives to fight another day, his adopted brother is dead by the end of it. You know, the British are going to inevitably win the war. And at the end, as we all know, inevitably, the British nor the French are going to settle North America. It's going to be the United States. We know these tribes are going to be wiped off the face of the earth with westward expansion. We know the inevitability of it. So there's tragedy to the ending. It's like the bad guys beaten, but there is this inevitability. But the vista shots in that film, very similar to the vista shots in Princess Mononoke. So the two of them always come to mind. Also, both films have great soundtracks. Last Mohegans, Randy Edelman and Trevor Jones both worked on the soundtrack for that. It's fantastic. You've heard the theme for it, The Gale. But Princess Mononoke got Joe Hisashi doing the soundtrack for it as well. Equally good. So those two films always are linked to me in the mind as these depictions, these epics of what historical conflicts can do to the natural landscape. Hello, I have that on in the background right now. The only Ghibli I was forced to see was Madonna's favorite, Kiki's Delivery Service. Fair enough, it can be overworn. I understand that. But did you at least enjoy Kiki? Did you enjoy it the first time? And I want to go back because I think there was other people talking. You got to see it in theaters, Kahuna. I'm jealous. This film is goated. Also has a lot of interesting concepts on display. Indeed. One day, I know some guys in the guild that have been asking when am I going to start getting into writing fiction? I have my story ideas. I just got to find a way to tie it all together. And you bet your butt that one of my ideas greatly inspired by stuff like Princess Mononoke and Last Mohegans. But we've been here for 2 hours, guys. And I think some of you guys are starting to get a little sleepy. Or that's just me. So we're gonna wind things down. Nope. Yep. But nope for a moment there. Look at Ashitaka and San in all their glory. Okay. So just a friendly reminder, starting next year, we're going to make an archive channel to move Uncut History streams over. I'm trying to get the algorithm to be a little kind to me. Just a little bit kinder to me. And then a little kinder to all of us. So we can get some more people. We can grow the chat, though I appreciate the chat already. This has been a great stream tonight. I've had a lot of fun. I hope you've had a lot of fun. Again, if you've not done so already, hit the like button down below. If here on the YouTube, on the Rumble, or watch it on the Facebook, to let the algorithms know that history videos matter and that you are stronger than the YouTube shorts. If you want to support this channel, the simplest way of doing it is by, I think I froze on Rumble. Oh, wow.
Oh, frequency's over on Rumble, by the way. I need to respond to him.
Oh, wow. That was like an hour ago. I really did freeze over there. You're a hoot. You did it! And I did, youngster, you're a hoot. If you want to support the channel, the simplest way to do it is by subscribing. subscribe here. If you have a Rumble account, be sure to subscribe over on Rumble, because we do a few Rumble exclusive streams, things that are a little too spicy for the mainstream internet outlets. And if you want to go the extra mile supporting me, you want to refill this cup, you can buy me a cup of coffee in the link in the description below. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you had a blast. This is the last stream for the year. I'm going to be very busy next week with the holidays, so sadly no stream, but I will see you in the new year. And of course, we got to play the music. Not that one. The Christmas special for Readout Productions will be premiering this Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to keep your eyes out for that. I'm trying to not make the music too loud. I'm not succeeding. Christmas special this Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be there, be square. Merry Christmas and Happy Festivus. Now it is time for the feats of strength.